All right. Can you send me a link for the video so that I can share it? You actually called it Road Pirates. Okay. I am Pumpkin. I'm going to be moderating this debate.
All
The
right.
participants
Can you
are
send me a link
Riley
for the
and
video
the Night Watchman.
so that I can share
They're
it?
going to be debating the topic of killing police and whether or not it's ethical. And for opening statements, I'll have Night Watchman going first. Night Watchman, you have. Oh, okay. 1 second. I was really excited. Sorry.
Do you want me to share the link in a few groups?
Sure. The more the merrier. I'm going to go ahead and share it one more place, and then that's probably as many people as we're going to get. All right, you want me to go ahead and start the introductions again? All right. Okay, so the debate we have going on now is it's going to be on the topic of the uh, killing of police, whether or not it's ethical, whether or not people should do it. It's Night Watchman versus Riley. And for opening statements, I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes each, starting with the Night Watchman. Your time starts in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, they say they can't hear you. You might be muted in OBS again. You might have the wrong microphone. Yeah, it's the same thing that happened last time. Ooh, that's a long delay on the stream. Yeah, I can hear you. We could have Riley do her opening statement while you try to fix your microphone.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm fine going first. Uh, so imagine for a minute you live in a society where everyone is just peacefully enjoying themselves. You're smoking weed, having sex, just being, all degenerate, but you're not hurting anyone. And all of a sudden, a group of people come in and they put on and they have a green outfit with a little, like, say, a red sticker. And they start to say, you know what? We now are in control of here. We are going to enforce these rules that we're going to lay down. This one guy comes out and says, these new rules are you can't smoke weed, you can't have sex, and if you do so, we're going to violently attack you. If this was to happen, would you say it would be justified to shoot these people? Now, let's say that half the people in the community thought that these thugs were okay to go around and violate your rights. If they were to come after you just for, doing a little bit of drugs and having sex, would it be justified to shoot you? Yes, of course it would, because these thugs are nothing but thugs causing harm to you because you're not committing any harm towards anyone else. You're just enjoying your life.
Oh, there we go.
The question then
Fixed.
would be, why do the police then get the special pleading
Right.
that they're allowed to violate your rights and they're allowed to come at you, attack you, and harm you, and even murder you for the same exact thing? Is it because we have the idea of a government? Well, what is a government other than a bunch of people agreeing that people can now stomp and violate your rights? The government we have is no different than the scenario I would have laid down. The cops are no different than the thugs who would put on the little green outfit and a red sticker to do that thing. Cops are no different than a gang or thugs, except that they're backed up by this idea of something we call a state. But at the end of the day, the cops are nothing more than just a threat to your liberty. And anyone who tries to harm you when you are not causing harm to others, you have a right to defend yourself, whether it be thugs, a burglar, a rape, or a police officer. You have a right to your life and your liberty. And if it's violated, you have a right to defend it through force if necessary.
Okay.
Okay, can
Barton,
everyone
they
hear
said
me
they
now?
could
I
hear you in
just
the
fixed my
chat.
microphone.
They said they heard you.
All right. Everyone can hear me.
Okay, you want to go ahead and do your opening statement?
Okay, my opening statement is that you can't blame a few bad cops for all the good cops who generally want to protect and serve their community. And cops are generally better trained and better prepared to deal with these situations than the average person who might end up putting themselves in jeopardy. And also, vigilantism sets a bad precedent because if you consider yourself the judge, jury, and executioner, what makes you think that one of your peers would have the same quote unquote moral judgment as you have? What if their idea of justice is to kill black people to preserve whiteness, or what if their idea of justice is what if they're a communist and their idea of justice is to kill rich people? It's just a very slippery slope. And that's why you need a specially trained unit who are exist to carry out justice impartially and without any preconceived notions or prejudices. That's my opening statement. And that's why we need cops.
All right, Riley. You have 1 minute for your rebuttal.
You
Your
say
time
that,
starts now.
okay, you say that like these people have no bias or no judgment, but they already judge you or see a bias towards you because you're breaking an arbitrary idea of law. Many of the criminals that we have, at least 50 to 60%, are people who have committed victimless crimes, who have been violated and thrown in cages, having their rights taken from them by these so-called trained professionals who would not have a bias. But the bias is whatever the government on top says it is. Therefore, it's no different than your vigilantes. The second thing is, if people were to live by natural law, they would not be going around violating people to begin with. But cops, in their own essence, cannot follow natural law because they are paid to violate your rights based on an arbitrary idea of the state.
All right, your turn, Spartan. Your time starts now.
Okay, but the idea of police is they put themselves on the line so the average person with a family doesn't have to. Cops generally are better trained. They have body armor. They have guns. They have better guns. They have radios. They can coordinate their efforts. And the average person just doesn't understand the amount of tactics or planning that goes into actual law enforcement. Sure, you may be able to defend your immediate vicinity, but when it comes to busting up complex drug cartels or child smuggling rings, that takes a lot of intelligence and effort and technical know-how that the average person just doesn't know. And that's why we need special law enforcement agencies. As a minarchist, I agree that a law enforcement agency like this is necessary.
All
right, Riley, go ahead.
To assume that in a stateless society people would be unable to be trained when we'd have unlimited training, unlimited resources, and unlimited time to do what we want is just silly. Second off, cops are not well trained. As you can see, that they have done many things like shoot people who are handcuffed, fear for their lives over dogs, and multiple other things. Cops have less restrictions on them than the military does. A cop can shoot for fear of their life. Military personnel are not even allowed to shoot if someone's shooting at them from a church or a house of worship. Cops have been known to abuse their power on multiple occasions, and the only thing you can do is go to the people who own the cops, the state, to violate and try and fight them. If a private militia was to do something, or a private security watch was to do something, you could take them to court through a third party and actually fight against them. The cops is a monopoly on force, and that is never okay because it's never going to be an honest situation when you have the person who runs the cops also be the ones who also you can go against to fight against the cops.
All right, go ahead, Night Watchman.
Well, the law enforcement agency I'm thinking of in my ideal night watchman state is an entirely volunteer agency, which involves high ethical standards, including not abusing your power and not over and not and being given the same restrictions and regulations that our modern soldiers have.
All right, go ahead, Riley.
But if you want a volunteer police society already, the first thing I'm going to ask is, would it be privately funded? And if it's privately funded, then what's the point of even having a state to regulate it to begin with? Because people are not going to be okay with unethical behavior. You can see this through a lot of businesses. When businesses start acting unethical, people boycott, people don't fund it, or people stand against it. And if they end up becoming violent in a stateless society, everyone would be armed to the point that they could take out these people. So if this voluntary police station you want, would they still be backed or funded by the police, or would they be separate? And if they're separate, then what's the point of even having a state to begin with? And if they're funded and controlled by the state, then they're not much different than what we have now.
All right, go ahead, Watchman.
Well, I think you're not even answering my question here. Is that vigilante justice sets a bad precedent in that it creates a lot of copycats who may not have the same idea of justice as you do. While with trained law enforcement agencies, they they know what to arrest people for. They know what to go after and what not to go after.
All right, go ahead, Riley.
What's your definition of vigilante? Because, vigilante can mean a lot of things. I could say that the state's being vigilante against criminals. They're no different except that they're state funded and state backed. Vigilante is just a term that can be thrown around, just like the word terrorist. Like if the Agorists tomorrow got called terrorists, would you believe they're terrorists just because the definition falls on them? Words can have many meanings, and words can be used in a connotation just to make people feel uncomfortable with a certain group or a certain idea.
Go ahead, Watchman.
Yes, but what sets apart vigilantes from cops is just, well, from most good cops, is that vigilantes, they generally engage in behaviors that, or engage, utilize force that goes well beyond what is necessary. I mean, you'd have vigilantes who are basically caving in. If you ever watch Punisher movies, you know what I'm talking about. Just caving in kneecaps, ripping out teeth, torturing. Well, the ideal agency I'm looking for is you has to practice. There has to be a certain amount of escalation to the situation. You can't just go in and shoot a guy for doing drugs, for example.
All right, Riley, go ahead.
I mean, we can sit here and hypothetically decide which way the police would want to be, but once again, if you have a police that's monitored or has state regulation, yes, we can put down all these rules we want, but people are flawed. And the difference is, though, having a monopoly on that flaw is worse than having a bunch of people where it's like, oh, this one group's bad, well, we can choose group 2 or 3 to work with us. And most people are not going to go all crazy. Like, most people are pretty civil. In fact, many people who end up joining the police force do so because they already have an abusive and aggressive nature to begin with.
And this is why, through my ideal law enforcement agency, which I'm going to hypothetically call the Night Watch, is going to have a sort of screening process to determine just what kind of personalities these people have. Are they aggressive? Do they have these dominant tendencies? Or are they more compassionate? Do they want to join? Do they want to protect and serve for more altruistic reasons? The,
Riley, go ahead.
But do you think a screening process can be faked? I've done multiple raids and multiple operations on fascist and Nazi servers where I was able to pass their screening without flaw. Screening processes can only do so much. But if you think that just a screening process is going to prevent abuse or going to prevent corruption from happening, then I don't know what to say.
that's why it has to be a sort of blind screening process. It has to be a process in which the person who's being tested isn't aware he's being tested.
Are you done with your response?
Yes.
Go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
But like at that point, what's the point of not just having multiple groups, or what's to prevent multiple groups from already forming to begin with? I mean, vigilante justice already exists in our current society, so this isn't going to stop anything. And the other question is like, I want to more or less know what would your night watchman state actually do, not like how they would function, but like what laws and what regulations would they actually impose? Because that's the more important question. Because the question is, should we kill cops? And in our current society, yes, you do have a right to kill cops because they do violate
Well,
natural
one of the
law
most
daily.
important regulations.
Hold on.
Well, one of the most important
Right.
regulations
Hold on.
I would
You're,
implement.
it was Riley's turn. They weren't done yet.
No,
Well,
I was done.
Oh,
no,
okay.
she was
Go
done
ahead.
already. I didn't want to cut her off or anything. Well, that's
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that the one common sense regulation would be you cannot kill someone without a due trial. Vigilantes don't offer that fair trial, and they are thus inherently unjust. You need to process a person first before you can determine whether they need to die or not.
Are you done with your time?
Yes.
Go ahead, Riley.
But no, I'm not. I'm not worried about if the cops kill a citizen right now. I'm saying what, with the night watchman state, what would they do? Like, what regulations or laws would they enforce? Because that's the more important question. Like, if you're stopping a child rapist, for example, yeah, I mean, go for it. They're horrible people. But if someone's like evading taxes or, has a meth distribution out of their house, like, who gives a fucking shit? So, like, what would your cops do?
Go ahead.
They would follow the same procedure they have been trained to follow. Is that you arrest this person, you you put them in a cell for a bit, you put them on trial, you determine if the seriousness of their actions, and depending on the seriousness of their actions, whether they need to be reformed or whether they need to be killed.
Go ahead, Riley.
But would you just, well, what would determine if you could even put them in a cell to begin with? Do you just grab random people off the street and says, okay, now we'll give you a trial to see if you actually did something wrong? Or like, what would be the implications to even put someone in a cell? Because personally, I'm anti-prison also. I think prison's a horrible idea. That's a debate for another day.
Well, prison.
Go ahead,
The idea of
Watchman.
private prisons is a debate for another day versus public prisons, but I would say that no, well, I wouldn't. No, it's not. Okay, that's saying it's kidnapping. No, it's you cannot take the person away without probable cause. Or, well, the problem I have with pure anarchist justice is it's purely reactive. The kind of justice I'm looking for is more proactive. You got to look for the signs ahead of time, and oh, if you know for sure that a person is going to commit a crime, then you have every right to prevent that crime from happening.
Are you done with your time?
And anarchist justice is just you are just responding after fact. With proactive justice, you can actually prevent the crime from happening in the first place.
Could you repeat that last part? Your mic cut out.
The thing with anarchist justice is it's purely reactive. You're only reacting to the crime. But with proactive justice, you can actually stop the crime from happening in the first place. So you actually stop the people from getting shot up at the school or from stopping that bank from getting robbed. If you know the signs, if you can signs, then you have every right to just stop that person before they can actually break the non-aggression principle in the first place.
Are you done with your time?
Yes.
Riley, go ahead.
Yes, but a lot of things can look like someone's intending to do something. If I'm walking down towards the school with a shotgun, it may look like I'm going to shoot up the school, right? And if someone says, where are you going with that gun? I'm going to the school. You might assume I'm going to the school to shoot it up. What if there's a rabid dog there attacking children? I might be going there to shoot the rabid dog. Intention alone or suspicion of a crime is not enough to lock someone up, because you can't just suspect someone, because then you can suspect shit of anything. Anything can end up looking suspicious to you. You can correlate anything to be suspicious. I can make evidence of anything to be suspicious. That's possible. You have to wait till you actually can prove someone is committing a crime before you can actually do anything. Otherwise, you're aggressing upon them because you can't prove a crime is actually going to happen. It's impossible to prove the crime is about to happen. Sorry, at the last moment, someone could just change their mind. They may not commit that crime. And thoughts and intentions are not a crime at all. Only action's a crime.
Go ahead, Watchman.
Well, I'm just not what I'm saying is just. Well, the thing is that if you look at most cities that have adopted proactive policing policies, crime has went way down. Compare that to Chicago, which still has a reactive policing policy, and crime has never been higher because you're allowing these people to adapt and multiply and, actually just take pot shots at the police.
Are you done with your time?
Yes.
Riley, go ahead.
I also think it's funny that you bring up Chicago, because Chicago has one of the highest levels of gun control. Yet places where most gun owners carry guns on them have less crime. Maybe it has to do more with government control, which actually increases crime, whatever you want to call crime is, because a lot of fucking shit's crime. But if you want to just go on the violent crime, even places where there's less guns, equal more crime. I happen to think in an anarchist society where more people have guns and more people are not being arrested or threatened with what you would call non-violent crime, crimes that do not violate natural law, would actually drop crime. In fact, the drug trade alone is more violent because of law enforcement, and government. If we didn't have that, You would just you can buy your drugs, you go to meth, go to Walmart, buy your meth, and buy your fucking crack, and go have fun. It wouldn't be a fucking big deal. But because of the cops that enforce all this shit, that decide to rule down on a law that, oh no, you can't do crack, now it makes it much more violent and more dangerous to participate in. So the whole cop system actually is part of a key that makes everything much more violent.
Go ahead, Watchman.
I have no idea why you brought drugs up. I don't think drugs should be part of a healthy society, but I would say that the war on drugs has been a bit of a failure, but it's just the fact it doesn't have anything to do with the cartels themselves. It just has to do with these corrupt governments that allow these cartels to continue to operate out in the open, such as the governments of Venezuela or Colombia. But if we did a Colombia, but yeah, I would admit that the corrupt governments down there are the reason that the cartels are just so bad. Drug cartels like that could not exist in the United States.
Are you done with your time?
I'm not. I'm not justifying the United States and all its policies, but I'm just saying that the war on drugs has probably needs a different strategy. I would agree, but to say that we should legalize all drugs is just a complete and utter non sequitur.
Riley, go ahead.
But back to what you originally said, that cops would intervene, put you in a cage, hold you in this little prison. Then you go to court and determine if you were going to commit a crime or not. And if you're innocent, you get to go. If you're innocent and you get to go, your natural rights were violated, which means that if the cop comes onto your property to kidnap you and you have not committed a crime yet, you have a right to kill that cop because they are now violating your natural right to freedom. This is why it's okay to kill cops, because cops, for the most part, arrest people for stupid shit that is not even harmful under natural law. But the cops are violating natural law, and to say that, well, society decides, or it's just best to try and prevent crime, you're not meant to prevent something from about to happen. You're only to intervene while something is happening. That's how natural law works. If someone's raping you, you have a right to kill them. Just because you think someone's going to rape you doesn't mean you can kill them, because they may just be looking at you weird because they have crazy eyes or some fucking shit. But what you're suggesting is that if someone is suspicious, under whatever rules your society would have, you'd be allowed to arrest them until they prove innocence, and that's never okay. You cannot stop someone or put someone down ever unless they are in the act of violating natural law.
Go ahead, Watchman.
Well, that only begs the question: how exactly do you define natural law?
Was that your whole question or your whole
That was
response?
my whole question.
Okay, go ahead, Riley.
In layman's terms, natural law is I can do whatever I want with my mind, body, and property as long as I don't violate the rights of somebody else's mind, body, or property. In very basic terms. So sex trafficking would be a violation because you're violating somebody's right by sex trafficking them. Theft would be a violation because you're taking someone's property. Kidnapping would be a violation because you're stealing somebody and moving them to a place they did not want to be. These are all simple examples. Now, if me and 5 friends are shooting at a tree and we're making a disturbing noise to our neighbor, oh, too fucking bad. Come talk to us about it. That you don't have a right to have us arrested over that or thrown in a cage because your rights are not violated at that point.
Okay, go ahead, Watchman.
Okay, but the whole idea, but that only begs the question: why? What gives you the right to harm your own body through the use of drugs? I don't think that's ethical. I don't think I should just stand by while someone just wastes away on heroin.
Is that your rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Riley.
I'm going to ask you a simple question. Do you think destruction derby is immoral as a response?
Go ahead, Watchman.
I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about demolition derbies. I'm not talking about extreme sports. I'm talking about drugs here. We need to stay on topic.
No, this question's very no. This will get to a point. Yes or no? Is destruction derby immoral? I'm asking this because it does come to a point.
Go ahead, Watchman.
This destruction derby immoral? No, because
Your mic's cut
adequate
out.
precautions and protections are in place, and the genuine purpose is, if done correctly, no one comes out seriously harmed. But there are accidents. Well, with drugs, they are almost 100% guaranteed to harm you, and yet people still use them simply because they want to get a cheap thrill out of it.
Go ahead, Riley.
The reason I brought up destruction derby is, yes, you're destroying your property. You know what else is your property? Your body. You own your body. You own your mind. You are allowed to do what you please with your own property. If you want to take a car to destruction derby and have it destroyed, that's your property. If you want to destroy your body, that's your problem. That's your property to do so. No one should be forced to have to pay for the damages of your body. If you waste away and die, no one wants to take care of you because you want to destroy yourself. That's on you. But you don't have a right to tell someone what they can do with their car at destruction derby, nor with their own body, whether they wither away and die or not. That is a choice they can only make.
Listen, if you
Hold
let
on.
someone if you let someone die, knowing that you could have easily prevented them from dying, that is something I'd like to call manslaughter. That is a crime in itself. You cannot allow a person to die when you could have easily prevented them from dying. What if they were
Are
what
you?
if they were like a close relative of yours? Would you say the same thing?
Go ahead, Riley.
I've had close relatives on drugs, and I have suffered stuff they've done to me because they were on drugs. That's where the violation starts, when they cause other people to suffer. But if they're only causing suffering to themselves, then no. It may be something you may try to help. You may say, hey, I think you should go to rehab. Hey, I'm not going to support you anymore if you keep doing drugs. You can do that. But at the end of the day, they have a right to do with what they want their body. If you really think that we need to prevent harm by banning certain things, maybe we need to ban fast food. I mean, processed food causes heart attack, stroke, everything else. So maybe we need regulations on what we eat. Maybe we need regulations on what we watch, because some shows are actually bad for the mind and actually cause damage. Maybe we need bans on a lot of things. But no, at the end of the day, it's your body, and you have the freedom and the bodily autonomy to do what you want with it, whether good or bad, as long as you're not pushing those consequences upon anyone else. There's a difference between what's the nice and good thing to do versus what are ethics. And sometimes ethics lead down to an answer you don't want to have to admit to. Yeah, it sucks to allow someone to deteriorate on drugs, but if that's their choice and they want to do that to their body, you have no right to stop them. You can try to help them and convince them not to, but you have no right to use force against them to make them quit.
Go ahead, Watchman.
Listen, I cannot just stand by and let someone kill themselves on drugs or just hop off a bridge. If a guy's gonna hop off a bridge, I'm gonna stop them. I'm gonna restrain them. And I'm gonna get them help.
Your mic cut out.
My mic cut out? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Start over, please.
Cut out. Okay, if everyone can hear me. Okay. Well, this debate was about cops, but if we're going to discuss the ethics here of being proactive, then if someone's about to jump off a bridge, then you have every right to. I'm going to stop that person because they're not in the right frame of mind. And there's always a chance that maybe they had a bad day and maybe they need some help. And I need to get them that help. It's my duty as a citizen.
Is that your rebuttal?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that ethics are firmly related to this discussion, so it's completely fine that we're on that subject. Anyway, go ahead, Riley.
There's a difference between me talking to my friend saying, hey, dude, look, you're living in your own shit. Like, let me take you to rehab, versus you saying, I have the authority to have someone kidnap you and throw you into rehab. There's a difference between talking to the guy who wants to jump off the bridge saying, hey, let's have a cup of coffee and talk about this, or pinning him down and locking him into a mental ward for 3 weeks until you decide that he's fit to leave again. There are things, yes, it sucks if someone kills themselves. Yes, it sucks if someone's destroying their lives on drugs. You can help in any way you want in a non-aggressive manner. Once you decide to use aggression against them, you're saying you have authority over that person. And I have to ask, what gives you the authority over anyone else?
Are you done with your time?
Yeah, I am.
Go ahead, Watchman.
Well, never said I had authority over them, but I am obligated to stop them from destroying themselves when I could easily prevent them from dying, because that's something called manslaughter. I keep telling you this. If you could easily prevent someone from dying and you do nothing, that is a crime in itself.
Are you done with your time, Watchman?
Yes.
Go ahead, Riley.
I'm going to ask you something then. Do you believe in universal health care? Do you think that all people should be given health care? Because by your theory, if not doing anything equals manslaughter, then refusing to give all people health care who have terminal illnesses who can't get treated in the hospital would also then be health care by society. It would be manslaughter by society. So is not having universal health care basically society committing manslaughter against people who can't afford health care?
Go ahead, Watchman.
I never heard of a hospital that denied treatment simply because the person couldn't afford it.
Is that your rebuttal?
Yes.
Go ahead, Riley.
No, I'm talking on an ethical standard. Say tomorrow, hospitals were allowed to deny people if they couldn't pay. Would you then be for universal health care?
Go ahead, Watchman.
Well, I'm just... Whoa. You kind of backed me into a corner here. No, I wouldn't be for universal health care. I think there would be, in medical society regulations, there would be so little regulations in the private insurance industry that the premiums you pay would be absurdly cheap. Cheaper than if you had to pay taxes.
Or is that your rebuttal?
Yes.
Go ahead, Riley.
And the question is then, why should hospitals even be required to treat somebody? You're saying somebody by force should have to give a service to somebody else?
Mr. Strawman, give me a break.
Not a straw man. You're saying that it's manslaughter if you don't intervene. If someone wants to harm themselves. That is what you said. You said if you let someone deteriorate on drugs, it's manslaughter. So if a hospital doesn't treat a dying patient, that would also be manslaughter by your own ethics alone.
Go ahead, Watchman.
Well, it seems like by your own logic, you're actually the one advocating for socialized medicine here, not me.
Go ahead, Riley.
Whether I support socialized medicine or not doesn't matter. What you're advocating for is if you don't do something, it's manslaughter. You're the one who's advocating that if you don't do anything to intervene, that's manslaughter. And so you're saying that if someone is doing drugs, they should be arrested and taken either to jail or rehab, right? Therefore, they can get help, because if you don't intervene, it's manslaughter. By that very logic, if hospitals don't treat people, for whatever reason, that would also be manslaughter. So should people have the positive right to be forced to be treated?
Are you done with your time?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Watchman.
Well, we were talking about if it was all right to kill cops or not, and this got way off on a tangent. And now we're talking about hospital socialized medicine. That should be for a completely different debate.
They're related. Go on, Watchman.
Okay, fine. But I've never heard of a hospital that denied medical treatment simply because the person couldn't afford it. So this is a complete hypothetical scenario that has no basis in reality. And I do not support socialized medicine. I just support a private health. I support a private health insurance system, but not under this system in which everything is so heavily monopolized or locked up behind state lines. I don't want a system like that.
Are you done with your time?
Yes.
Go on, Riley.
So back to the original point on killing cops. If someone is destroying their body on drugs, right? Yes, you may say you may have a moral thing to try to help them, but you don't have a right to use force against them. If you call the police to come to their home to take them to rehab, they are violating that individual's right to harm themselves, to do whatever they want with their own body, their property. And if those cops try to relocate them to a rehab center, those individuals have every right to kill those kidnappers. It'd be no different than if me, you, and Pumpkin were to kidnap someone on drugs and take them to our house and force them to recover. No difference. Just because they have a badge and some magic authority under some law doesn't make it any more justified for them to kidnap them. Whether you think it would help them or not, whether society thinks it would help them or not, and whether science thinks it would help them or not, at the end of the day, the ethics are it's their body to do what they choose with, and if they choose to die by doing drugs and starving themselves, you or I cannot use force to stop them from doing it on any ethical basis.
Go on, Watchman.
Again, I keep saying to you that we have that the ideal night watch agency I'm thinking of protects and serves life, even if a person is threatening to destroy their own life.
Is that your response?
And I cannot personally believe what you're saying is that I should just sit by and let someone die. That is just morally repugnant.
Are you done with your time?
I'm done with my time.
Go on, Riley.
I'm not telling you to just sit by and do nothing. Go to their house. Say, hey, look at yourself. You're on drugs. Hey, let me help you. I'm willing to help you. You're not doing good right now. You can live with me and I can help you recover. I'll give you food. I'll give you money. I can help you manage your money. There's a lot of things you can do voluntarily to help someone, but you need to justify morally why you can use force against someone who wants to destroy their own body. Not an appeal to emotion that it sucks, it's sad, it's messed up. You need to tell me a moral reason why you have a right to choose when someone's allowed to lose their rights or not.
Go ahead, Watchman.
I thought that was a moral reason. To defend our precious lives. To not let someone just waste their lives just addicted to drugs or whoring themselves out on the street for quarters at a time.
Are you done with your response?
People have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to a good education, good health care, good food. They shouldn't have to live like that.
Are you done with your response, Watchman?
Yes.
Go ahead, Riley.
No one's forcing them to live like that. Doing drugs is an active choice. If you offer them, hey, I'll help you, hey, I'll give you food, I'll let you live with me till you recover. If you're giving them every opportunity, they still refuse. That is not a choice. And how do you know they don't like whoring themselves out? I've done sex work before. I didn't mind it. It was not bad. It paid fucking well. You're allowed to do what you want with your body. You own your body. You can sell it, and you can sell it for whatever you want. You can sell it for food, drugs, rent, just for the fuck of it. If you want a new PlayStation, once again, you're deciding what morals should be required for people to live by. I'm saying people should be allowed to live how they want. If you disagree with someone, you can talk to them, try and show them a better way, but you're never allowed to use force because they're not harming anyone else. They're only harming themselves.
Go ahead, Watchman.
But again, if you're aggressing against yourself, if you're harming yourself, then you are committing a crime against yourself by your own admission. I'm done. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Riley.
You can't commit a crime against yourself. You can only commit crimes against others. Because whatever you want to do to yourself is voluntary. It's your own choice. It's your property. If I buy a house just to burn it down and it's in a controlled fire, where it's made sure no one else is harmed, I can burn down my own house. It's my money. It's my life. I can do what I want. You may think it's a crime because of your ideas of how people should live, but it's not a crime to harm yourself. It's not wrong to harm yourself. It might not be a good choice. It may be something you may want to choose to help someone do something different. But once again, because it's their body and their life, at the end of the day, yes, it sucks. It's terrible to have to let someone die to drugs. If you try every avenue in a peaceful way where they won't stop, it's terrible to know that they're going to die. But you still don't have a right to stop them from doing something with their want with their property, including their body.
Go ahead, Watchman.
But it's not ethical to just have someone waste their potential.
Is that your
To
response?
deny them a better quality of life they could have had you intervened, rather than just having them just waste away on drugs. Rather than having them rehabilitated and be free from those addictions and to live a normal, healthy life with actual connections and actually get to experience life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Are you done with your time?
Yes.
Go ahead, Riley.
I mean, we can always say something can be better. I mean, if Bernie Sanders gets elected and gives free college, a lot of people's lives could be better getting a college education and getting a higher paid job. But then we have to look at the implications. Are we using violence to violate people's rights? And yes, we would be. By using the police to violate someone's rights to make their life better, you're violating the right. What if Bernie Sanders got and required everyone to get a college degree? Said, we're going to require everyone to get a college degree. This is now a new requirement. Yeah, it would better a lot of people's lives, but now we're arguing from consequentialism. We're not arguing through ethics anymore. We're saying, well, the consequences are this person can have a better life. Therefore, we need to use violence to make them have a better life. And that's not how we do things ethically. Ethically is we can help people voluntarily, but we cannot use force ever, even if we can come up with a consequentialist argument why their life should be better or could be better or how it would be better.
Go ahead, Watchman. If you're speaking, your microphone's not working. Watchman?
Well, I'm just saying that it's just the person who's on drugs is never always just harming themselves. They always cause harm to people around them, whether it be emotionally or psychologically or sometimes financially. Sometimes it's not always their money they're using, but my case in point is that no one suffers alone. No one. And that the idea that a person could just and the idea they present that oh this person is his choice, it's his body, and he can just roll over and die and it won't affect anyone else, that's a lie. You know it'll affect a lot of people. Especially if it's someone you know and loved who just, if you could have done something more, but you tried to ask him to stop him from dying on drugs, but you didn't do anything, and now he's dead, he's in a funeral, and now everyone's just mourning his loss, and they're kind of blaming you for it because you did nothing.
Go ahead, Riley.
You bring up the emotional argument of like, yeah, it does affect other people by affecting their emotions. Well, I can argue that when people misgender me, it affects my emotions, so maybe we should make that a law now. No one can misgender me anymore. New law. If you misgender me, you go to jail for 5 years. I mean, we can do everything emotionally. That's not how it works. That's not how rights work. You don't have a right to feel good. You don't have a right to be happy. You don't have a positive right to that. You have a negative right to feel good and happy, but you don't have the right to enforce happiness on other people. And in an anarchist society, people would be able to leave that situation. Right now, under a state society, children are forced to stay in those kind of homes. In an anarchist society, they get to go live with their grandma, their aunt, without any law preventing it. Yes, the emotional harm does exist. I'm not ignoring that. I'm saying, though, that they're not harming your right to life, liberty, or property. And that's all that really matters at the end of the day. I know it's a shitty way to say it, but that's how ethics actually work. It's not a happy answer. It's not the answer you want. It's not the answer that's going to say, hey, let's help everyone and make everything better. Yeah, I'd like that society where everyone can be helped, everyone can live a nice, functioning life, but we don't have that. And we can't enforce that upon others. Ever. Unless you're okay with using violence against peaceful people.
Okay, guys, would you like to go for 10 more minutes and then move to closing statements?
That's fine.
Watchman?
I don't know if there's any way to get through to her because she's just going around in circles.
Then would you like to do closing statements now?
So I think we should just do closing statements.
All right, I'm going to give you each 2 minutes for closing statements. Watchman, you can go ahead and start.
My closing statement is this, is that if you have the ability to stop someone from suffering, then you have every right to prevent that person from suffering.
Are you going to keep going?
And of course, never mind.
No, go ahead. Go on. You have a minute, 30 seconds left. If you're speaking, it's not coming through. Watchman?
And I don't focus
Your
on...
mic cut out.
Sorry about that.
You can go ahead and start over. I'll give you 2 minutes again. Go on.
No, you don't have to give me 2 more minutes. It's just that what Ryan's told me is just... It's just the reason why I can't fully commit to the volunteers cause. It's this tolerance of moral decay and the idea that I should just let someone engage in things that are harmful or destructive towards themselves, and I cannot morally side with that. I just can't. That's why I'm at least and that's why I'm at least an anarchist, because I want it to be some institution that preserves a sense of justice and morality and making sure that people don't, have to slip through the cracks.
Are you done with your closing statement?
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done with my
Go ahead,
closing.
Riley.
I mean, Night Watchman, I get what you're saying. I've seen people suffer on drugs. I've literally dealt with people who've done drugs who caused me to suffer. I understand what you're saying. The point is, in our current society, using force and violence is never acceptable to use on people harming themselves. I want to build a society in which people do not have to harm themselves, in which there are multiple options in which people can get help, in which way people can bring tons of voluntary options like, hey, you can come here and get help. Hey, we'll feed you and clothe you and take care of you while you're trying to recover. I want to do it through a more peaceful means. I do not believe in using violence against people who are harming themselves and using threats of violence, because that's not an appropriate response. An appropriate response is showing kindness and compassion and actually help these people recover. But to use force and violence is only escalating things, making the problem larger, making the problem go more underground where normal people cannot see it and deal with it. This is why I oppose the police, because the police push this further underground and people go to like crack houses and places where you can't see it. If this problem was able to be wide open in the public, I can go and say, hey, this person's starting to get on drugs. We should try and talk to them and help them out of it. Not wait till the point they're completely deteriorated to the point that they're already screwed. And now you have to use the state violence. I want to be able to help people before problems happen. And that's a whole discussion how to prevent the stuff to begin with. But under the current society or any society in which you would have force to try and stop it, it's just going to push the problem further underground and further under the eyes of most people, in which you're not going to be able to help. And it's just going to lead to more problems, which is why you should always choose the voluntarist option, because that way while this stuff is permitted, we can oppose it as a society morally in a way where we say, we don't like this, we're not okay with this, and we're going to help people have these problems. That way, we don't have to use violence, and we can help people in these situations before these situations even arise.
Would you guys like to see if the chat wants to ask any questions?
Sure.
Or we
Let's
could-
go over
okay.
the chat. If any of them have any questions, they can ask them now, and we'll be able to answer them to the best of our abilities.
Okay,
ask
guys,
away.
if you guys would like to ask questions, please specify who it's directed towards, or if it's not directed towards a specific person, we can ask both of them. Give it a minute to catch up. If nobody asks any questions, we can just go ahead and end the stream there, if you're fine with that, Watchman.
Right. Just give them a few minutes.
Oh, Roving had a question. I just noticed it. Ask Riley, if he cares about other people in this way, then why can't you create a society that exists to make sure these problems don't happen in the first place? Oh, they were saying for Riley to ask you that, so I guess that's a question for Watchman. Go ahead, Watchman.
What did they ask me?
Roving wants to know, if you care about people in this way, then why can't you create a society that exists to make sure these problems don't happen in the first place?
Well, that's exactly what I was actually talking about. Creating a society in which problems like this don't arise in the first place through appropriate preventative measures.
I don't think that's what they meant. Voluntarist Astartes asks, do you like rubbery latex or leathery latex, Spartan?
Okay, that is not relevant to the discussion, but Voluntarist Stars has been obsessed with latex like as of late, but I don't know. Leathery latex would be more in line with the medieval theme, to be honest.
I don't think that was relevant to the discussion. I think was a better question or a better answer to the question.
I said that, but
I
but if he
know.
really wants
I
to know the
know.
answer,
Nobody's asking any questions, so I guess we can end here if you want.
all right, let's just end it here, I guess.
Thanks for having the debate. Thank you, Watchman. Thank you, Riley. And thanks for having me as a moderator.
You're welcome,
It was
Pumpkin.
fun.
And have a good night, everyone.
Yep.